Well, greetings, one and all. Welcome to the April 2021 Move to Amend Live Report. I'm Greg Coleridge, Outreach Director, and joining me this evening is...
I'm George Friday, Move to Amend Board of Directors and founding member. I'm in Gastonia, North Carolina.
And I'm on the beautiful North Coast here in Northeast Ohio. So good to have you with us this last Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. right here on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Today we have a slew of news and updates, so stay put, don't go anywhere, and share or retweet this live stream using the hashtag Move to Amend or hashtag Live Report for a chance to win a free t-shirt. Don't know if it's this one or not. It's kind of ragged. I've worn it so much. At the end of the report. How to win? Well, there's a couple ways. You need to be following us on each platform, Facebook and Twitter, and then on Facebook, share this live feed with the hashtag Move to Amend. On Twitter, retweet this live feed with the hashtag Move to Amend. We'll pick one lucky winner from each platform, Facebook and Twitter. And then feel free to ask us your questions anytime. George and I will answer them at the end. And even if you're not tuning in live, we'll make sure to reply with a response ASAP. So good to have you. And we begin this evening with corporate rural news. Well, my goodness, April was indeed packed with corporate rural news. Let's start with the trial and verdict that had the attention of the entire nation. Of course, we're talking about the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who a jury found guilty on all the counts he faced over the death, murder of George Floyd. Chauvin, age 45, has been found guilty of unintentional second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Chauvin remains in custody, and his sentencing is set for June 16th. State sentencing guidelines recommend 12 and a half years in prison for a conviction on unintentional second-degree murder for someone with no criminal history. But prosecutors could seek a sentence up to the maximum of 40 years on that count if the judge determines there were aggravating factors. It is not an exaggeration at all to say that this trial has been one of the most closely watched cases in recent memory, setting off a national reckoning on police violence, systemic racism, and how we should reimagine policing in the US even before the trial commenced. But as we have had this national discussion, it is extremely important to remember that we just can't turn this whole incident into an opportunity to finally push beyond the sort of conversations that we've always had to start actively engaging in the process of what it looks like to build systems that actually have the values and the self-determination that Black people and other people who have been abused and killed by this system deserve. And we're not talking about just, quote, reimagining policing. We don't need that. What we do need is to re-examine the meaning of public safety. Millions, if not billions, of taxpayer money over time have been spent and are being spent on policing. And still, we are not safe. 182 Black people, in fact, including Andrew Brown Jr., have been killed by police since George Floyd's death. Black people account for 18.7% of police killings, despite making up only 13% of the US population, according to the Census Bureau. Housing is safety. Healthcare is safety. Funding things that actually prevent social instability and conflict is safety. Raising the minimum wage to a livable $15 per hour as well as safety. And newsflash, raising the minimum wage won't hurt business. That's this next story we're dealing with. And that's what CEOs from McDonald's, Denny's, and other big restaurant chain corporations are telling investors, that a national minimum wage hike wouldn't be a big deal, even as their corporate lobbying groups in Washington fight plans for a $15 minimum wage. So they're saying one thing internally to their investors, but something totally different to the public at large and to, through their lobbyists, and at least who they are trying to lobby, public officials who are supposed to be representing us. The National Restaurant Association, for example, has been saying that restaurants, because they operate on tight margins, rely on tips and have been hit hard by the pandemic, can't handle supposedly a $15 minimum wage and the elimination of the tipped minimum wage. However, again, on recent earnings calls, executives at restaurant chains that belong to the association have explicitly debunked these talking points. Domino's Pizza's CEO, Rich Allison, even disputed the idea that $15 an hour is an unaffordable labor cost. He said, quote, "We've been able to manage our way through a lot of minimum wage increases across the country. And I'll tell you, quite honestly, in our corporate store business, we're not paying the federal minimum wage anyway. You can't go out there and hire people at that rate anyway," unquote. And in fact, California's law raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2023 has actually been good for the diner chain's business, according to Denny's chief financial officer, Robert Versteck. Denny's is yet another one of several publicly traded restaurant chains whose executives have told investors internally that recent months that Democrats' proposed minimum wage hike is not really a real threat to their business and may even be a net positive. Additionally, in January, McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczynski told investors internally the company, quote, developed quite a bit of experience, unquote, with minimum wage hikes at the state level, and they haven't had a problem. And it shouldn't be a problem at all, especially if these CEOs followed the steps of Dan Price, CEO of Gravity Payments, who cut his own annual salary to give his employees a $70,000 minimum salary. But anyways, that won't happen. Back to the story. Other top executives from Diamond Rock, Hospitality, Kroger, HCA Healthcare, Hilton, and Six Flags corporations all have downplayed the negative effects of a prospective minimum wage increase, and some have even argued it would boost consumer spending. The statements from leaders across various service industry sectors undercut corporate lobbying groups in Washington that have pretended such a wage increase would destroy the economy. Quote, "Many, including me, are supportive over time that the minimum wage needs to move up," said Hilton CEO Chris Nazzetta in a February earnings call. Again, quoting, "I think we should all assume that the minimum wage is going to be going up over time. In fact, because it needs to," unquote. And that is exactly right. It needs to be increased because the federal minimum wage has flatlined at a paltry $7.25 an hour, or if you factor it out, $15,080 annually for 12 consecutive years. Since its implementation in 1938, the federal minimum wage has increased 22 times since its inception, inching its way up from cents on the dollar to today's, again, paltry $7.25 rate. And through the 1940s through 1960s, the wage increases kept pace with productivity growth, meaning more goods and services are produced per hour, as well as inflation. But then something happened. The pace of wage growth started slowing after 1968, and the minimum wage stopped rising as inflation rose. Had the minimum wage of 1968 simply stayed even with inflation, it would be more than $10 an hour today. And if it had grown at the same rate as, say, Wall Street bonuses Wouldn't that be amazing? It would be, get this, $44 an hour today. But of course, greedy mega corporations and businesses started pouring money, and some, if not many, continue to do so into think tanks and lobbying groups like the National Restaurant Association and others to try to fight plans for a $15 minimum wage. And that, my friends, is because corporations have First Amendment political free speech rights to donate, contribute, invest, whatever you want to call it in politics and elections. And that will never, ever change unless and until we abolish not just Citizens United, but money is speech and corporate constitutional rights, which is exactly and precisely what our We the People Amendment accomplishes. But President Biden might have just given the movement a really big boost when he signed an executive order, maybe you saw it this past Tuesday, raising the minimum wage paid by federal contractors to $15 an hour. That move alone would affect hundreds of thousands of workers, according to a senior administration official. Biden's order would also phase out the tipped minimum wage, which stands at $7.25 by 2024, and set minimum wages for workers with disabilities on par with the standard minimum wage for contractors. This sure is a good first step in the right direction, and it signals that the minimum wage is going to be going up over time, despite what corporate greed is trying to prevent it from happening. The question is it going to happen fast enough, quick enough to affect all the people that's needed? That's where our lobbying and our pressure needs to happen. However, not all fights for fair workplaces are going well as we turn our attention to other news. Amazon warehouse workers, for example, in Alabama, voted recently, when was that, a week or two ago, a couple weeks ago now, not, unfortunately, to form a union, in what many view as a major blow to organized labor movement. Of the some 3,117 votes cast in the closely watched union election, a total of 1,798 votes were against unionization, compared to only 738 in favor, according to the National Labor Relations Board. Even accounting for the 505 challenged ballots, Amazon still had enough no votes to defeat the organizing efforts. It seems like Amazon's union-crushing tactics unfortunately paid off, and they really tried just about everything at their disposal, from trying to surveil employees, stall postings, which circulated on social media that read, "Where will your dues go?" and anchor proclaiming, "Unions can't, we can," setting up a website to tell workers that they would have to skip dinner and school supplies to pay their union dues, and even changing a traffic signal to prevent organizers from approaching warehouse workers as they left the site. Quote, "We won't let Amazon's lies, deception, and illegal activities go unchallenged, which is why we are formally filing charges against all of the egregious and blatantly illegal actions taken by Amazon during the union vote," unquote, said Stuart Applebaum, president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, one of the unions organizing on behalf of the Amazon warehouse workers. The unionizing efforts might have failed in Bessemer, but if the history of unions has taught us anything, it's that it's always about falling forward. Workers trying, workers losing, and workers trying again. The fight is not over, and the workers in Bessemer brought national attention to issues that many non-union workers face. Now, Staten Island Amazon workers begin union organizing drive, and they'll be drawing the lessons from Bessemer, both that which didn't work as well as those things that did seem to be positive. The outcome in Bessemer, union organizers say, has solidified the choice as the best option for Staten Island's more than 5,000 workers, especially since other unions have tried and failed to unionize facilities in New York. We wish these folks the best of luck, and we will be bringing you more information on this issue as it develops. But one of the takeaways from that drive that we need to understand that connects to the work we're doing is the unfair sort of political, and in this case, organizing rules that outfits like Amazon Corporation have versus the union has. If you're a corporation, you have carte blanche to workers on corporate property. You can speak freely, you can try to organize or unorganize, you can invade people's privacy, you can do all sorts of things. But if you are a worker and the moment you step onto corporate property, so long Bill of Rights, particularly First Amendment, right of speech, right of organizing, right of assembly. It is not a fair fight and will never, ever be a fair fight again and unless we abolish all corporate constitutional rights, which again is what the We the People Amendment is all about. All right, moving on to another story that we've been closely following. And it's a sordid and sickening one at that. Maybe you've read or seen something about this. Several federal agencies have taken advantage of legal loopholes to collect massive amounts of personal information from cell phones and internet users. That would happen to be us, you and me, without congressional or judicial authorization for years. The list of agencies that have abused the flimsy loophole to bypass the Fourth Amendment, that's the one that is supposed to be protecting us search and seizure rights from being snooped on by the government and presumably corporate entities as well. And spy on all of us includes the U.S. military, ICE, Customs and Border Protection, the Secret Service, and even the law enforcement arm of, you guessed it, the U.S., or maybe you didn't guess it, the U.S. Postal Service, which has been quietly running a program that tracks and collects Americans' social media posts. Yeah, you heard that right. The U.S. Postal Service has been running a surveillance effort known as, nice title, ICOP, which stands for the Internet Covert Operations Program, which involves having analysts draw through social media sites to look for what the document describes as, quote, inflammatory postings, and then sharing that information across government agencies. But that practice is being challenged by a bipartisan and bicameral group of lawmakers who introduced what's called the Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act that would prevent the U.S. government from buying individuals' information from deal brokers without a court order, protecting everyone in the U.S. from unlawful searches and seizures. One of the key civil liberties spelled out in the Bill of Rights, which is supposed to protect us, but these days only seems to apply increasingly, here again, to corporate entities, which increasingly are leaning on, depending on, hiding behind the Fourth Amendment to say that they shouldn't be surveilled on, that they shouldn't be checked on to make sure that they are being acted accountably. But anyway, search and seizure right seems to apply less and less to human persons, human beings, every day, while corporate attorneys continue to work to expand its application to their employers. Currently, phone companies like AT&T Corporation and Verizon Corporations and tech companies like Google and Facebook Corporations, loopholes in the current law permit data brokers and other firms without a direct relationship to consumers to sell your and my private information to the government without a court order. And reports revealed that a data broker named Ventel is selling location data collected from Americans' smartphones to government agencies. Feeling a little queasy and uneasy? I sure am. Another controversial data broker, Clearview AI, love the name, has compiled a massive database of billions, with a B, of photos, which it downloaded in bulk from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube in violation of their terms of service, and uses these illicitly obtained photos to power a facial recognition service it sells to government agencies, which they can search, again, without a court order. Question for you who are live streaming right now. But wasn't the U.S. Postal Service broke or being defunded last year? How do you all feel about having the U.S. Postal Service and other federal agencies surveilling your social media? Let us know what you think in the comments section. And if you need more reasons to watch what you post online, there is a brutal fight going on to mine your data and sell it to your boss. The feud is between LinkedIn and an outfit called, I don't know if it's HIQ or whether it's called HiQ. Nice, innocuous name, sort of friendly, soft, nice soft sound. A people's analytics firm, HiQ, that creates software tools such as a keeper service, which identifies where employees are at risk of leaving for another job, drawing the overwhelming majority of their data from the material that is posted, with varying degrees of timeliness, detail, accuracy, and self-awareness. By the 500 million people on the social networking site LinkedIn. So it's mining all of that data for what you may be trying to move from where you are now to another job. LinkedIn, which is owned by Facebook, another known data collector and seller, accused HiQ back in 2017 of using processes to improperly and without authorization access and copy data from LinkedIn's website. HiQ sued back, alleging that LinkedIn does not have monopoly rights to personal data made publicly available by its users, and that by scraping its website, HiQ can do what LinkedIn is doing, and that it's not violating users' privacy rights. They can scrape that information and use it in the same nefarious ways that LinkedIn is doing. On August 14, 2017, a judge from the Northern District of California, in fact, issued an emphatic ruling in favor of HiQ. LinkedIn appealed, but the appeal was denied. The Ninth Circuit determined that scraping publicly available information from LinkedIn likely is not a violation of what's called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, because the LinkedIn computers are publicly accessible. As such, HiQ did not access the computers without authorization, quote unquote, as required by the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. LinkedIn then filed its petition with the Supreme Court of the United States, which is currently pending. So who knows when that will be heard or decided, maybe as early as the end of this session, which would be by the end of June. Depending on who you ask, the sides are arguing about free speech or privacy, the scourge of data scraping, or the danger of digital monopoly. What's for sure is that the outcome will determine who gets to control the wealth of information about ourselves that often unwittingly we've put at the disposal of anyone with a professional curiosity and an internet connection. We will obviously keep you updated as the case moves forward, so stay tuned to future episodes of the live report or of Making Sense. But again, the takeaway from all of this from our standpoint is the double standard, is it not, of Fourth Amendment search and seizure rights. We, human beings, seemingly have fewer and fewer. With the government, if not these private entities kind of searching and surveilling on us at will and being backed up by courts, but meanwhile, corporate entities seemingly are gaining more protections, so that it makes it more difficult for us to make them accountable to not only we the people, but to make sure that what they are doing behind closed doors on corporate property is promoting the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, of consumers, of workers, of the community, and of the natural world. So don't go anywhere right now, because up next, we have our campaign updates. You're listening to the Move to Amend monthly report. I'm Greg Coleridge, Move to Amend's Outreach Director. Move to Amend is the campaign, once again, to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make crystal clear that corporations do not have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Ask us again any questions you have or make comments in the comment section, and George Friday and I will get to them. Once again, we are pitching, whether it's this t-shirt or another one, prizes. And so just remind all of you to retweet. If you're on Twitter or on Facebook, put the link, and we will pick at the end of this program. We will announce who is the winner of a t-shirt both on Facebook and on Twitter. So again, ask questions, do your bit in sharing this link. Next up is updates from the Move to Amend campaign. Well, the big news in the month of April is sort of the big news in terms of our campaign in the month of previously in March, February, and January. We've been at this campaign that we call Move the 117th Congress to Amend, that many of you, most of you, maybe at least know about, if not have been actively involved with. So thank you so much for that. For people who may not be familiar with it, the We the People Amendment, again, some of you may know, has been introduced formally, but not publicly, if that makes sense, which one hand it sort of doesn't, but bear us out. It was introduced in the 117th Congress on April 5th by our congressional leader, Representative Pramila Jayapal from the state of Washington. And she said when she introduced this amendment, quote, after the most expensive election in American history, in which special interests poured millions in dark, actually more like tens of millions, in dark money in campaigns across the country, the We the People Amendment finally returns the power to the people. Amen. Representative Jayapal. The amendment has 50 initial co-sponsors, along with Representative Jayapal, so it's sort of 51, the most it has ever had in the 5 times it's been introduced in the House of Representatives. To read the full press release regarding the reintroduction of the amendment in the Congress, please follow the link that Alfonso will be kindly sharing with you here momentarily. We really need, as we have been saying for the last couple of months, all hands on deck to reach our goal. We're trying to get 100 co-sponsors this year, sort of right out of the gate as early as we can in this congressional session, which began in early January. We want to do that as early as possible so that we can develop momentum, use as a springboard to do other work in terms of presenting this in other forums, trying to get other co-sponsors, trying to get other endorsers, organizational, and trying to get other resolutions, and in trying to pivot and focus on some other complementary or supplementary work. You can help us in a variety of ways. The one is, if you haven't yet been part of an effort to line up a meeting with your congressional representative, you can go to the website, movetoamend.org/117 campaign to see if your rep is a co-sponsor already. And if not, then you can sign up to help them get them on board. You don't have to do it by yourself. We at National will help you, not just solely, but we'll also try to help you find some other constituents in your congressional district to collectively approach your congressional office to set up a virtual meeting that we will join you on to lobby for a co-sponsorship. You can also help us if either your congressperson is already endorsed, or maybe that person is somebody who, just from your sense, is no way probably going to endorse. You can also help us by considering making a financial contribution by going to movetoamend.org/donate. You can also help by recording a short video. And by short, we're talking about 30 seconds or less of yourself saying why you support the We the People Amendment and urging your congressperson to co-sponsor it, or thanking them if they already did and sharing it on social media. If you choose to do that, remember to tag us by doing so by putting @MoveToAmend and also your representative. Also, remember, you can find out if your representative has co-sponsored the amendment on our movetoamend.org/117th campaign page. So a variety of ways to help us get from where we are now. We're over halfway, and we hope here within the next month, if not less, to get the ballots, to get that at least 100 congressional co-sponsor threshold. With your help, we can do it. The We the People Wednesdays is yet another easy yet effective action that you can partake in with just a few minutes of your time. That was launched today, in fact. If you are on our database, you probably received a email that launched this campaign. That campaign being that each and every single Wednesday, bar none, if your congressperson is someone who you think is someone potentially who could endorse, co-sponsor the We the People Amendment once a week, that's all we ask. I mean, you probably do other things once a week. Take out the garbage, wash your, I don't know about washing your dog, but doing things, routinely, having a habit, something you do once a week. Here is something that's an easy lift that only takes a couple of minutes to do. And so watch for that. That's something, We the People Wednesdays. Find out what your number is of your congressperson. Go to that email that came out today. You don't even have to look it up. Just click on what's called the one click, and based on where you are and who and your address, that will automatically take you to your congressperson, where you then can reach out to them by phone and ask them to co-sponsor the We the People Amendment. All right, so that's one big, very big campaign that we're involved in, and hopefully we will, within the next month, reach that 100 congressperson plateau. Another thing we do each and every week, not on a Wednesday, but Friday, is Making Sense with Move to Amend. Every Friday we go live to interact with you all, answer questions, share your thoughts, and answer your questions, hear what we have to say about current events, as well as hear your conversation and take your comments and queries. This is all part of a project that's been going on that's been happening now for, 7 or 8 months, if not more. Feel free to make suggestions. We always take those into consideration. This Friday, 2 days from now, join Daniel Lee and George Friday. Next is Toward a People's Constitution. This is something that you may be familiar with, maybe not so much. It's a project we launched last December on International Human Rights Day, December 10th, 2020. It's a long and new website. You can go to www.peoplesconstitution.us. And there you will find a bunch of information that is grappling with the whole idea of what is a people's constitution all about. It seems like more and more people are coming to agree that the system is flawed, our basic governing system, because our constitution, the baseline of this country, is in fact flawed. So more and more people are coming to the same conclusion as us, that the Constitution needs major reform, if not transform, as in transformation. It's time to think big and bold. Are you ready to envision a people's constitution and join us? I've always said that if you have big problems, you need big solutions. Problems and solutions have to be equivalent. They have to be proportional. It ain't going to work, my friends, if you have a big problem and you try to milk toast it. You try to throw out something that's half-baked. It just isn't going to work. So anyway, with that, go to peoplesconstitution.us/join to sign up to become part of the ongoing conversation. And this is one of the projects that we will be turning greater attention to once we meet that 100 co-sponsorship threshold of the We the People Amendment. Once again, you're listening to the Move to Amend Monthly Live Report here in April. I'm Greg Coleridge, Outreach Director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Ask us your questions anytime. And again, we're making one last pitch for t-shirts. If you haven't yet, please do retweet and reshare on Facebook and Twitter. So next up, and joining us will be George Friday with our dispatch from the grassroots.
Good to be here with you. Got a shout out to folks at Central Ohio Move to Amend for their development of a great booklet tailored to their rep, Joyce Beatty. The packet contained a personal letter and a booklet appealing to Representative Beatty's interest in Frederick Douglass and in making the connections between the efforts of Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, and Rosa Parks to assert the morality and constitutionality of enslaved human beings being human persons, not property. With Move to Amend's efforts that corporations are property, not human beings, and can be defined by we the people. Special thanks to Sandy Bolzinius for drafting this creative booklet. It's currently available online in the Take Action Toolkit, so check it out and adapt it for your own house rep. A shout out to leaders in Prescott area Move to Amend for their fantastic outreach to Northern Arizona groups and community. From local indivisible groups to the ACLU, folks in Prescott have done a great job in bringing in local and state organizations to their monthly meetings to show support and build solidarity, featuring several guest speakers to teach grassroots supporters about the important local work happening within the broader democracy movement. And lastly, a shout out to folks with the Tuscaloosa Move to Amend for their persistent outreach and education efforts in Alabama. They recently held an insightful online presentation examining the impacts of the Supreme Court decision in Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mayon, upending state government's ability to regulate and prohibit harmful corporate activities in order to give corporations their Fifth Amendment right against takings. Special thanks goes out to local Move to Amend member, Dr. Catherine Davies, for giving this talk. So that's it on campaign updates, but we're here to answer any questions that you might have if you put in comments. And don't forget to stay tuned to make sure find out if you've won a t-shirt. Move to Amend operates with the energy and brilliance of many, many people. Our staff, our affiliate leaders, we make a great team. Our staff deserve more than we can give them, and as a person on the board, I appeal to you to help us financially. The best way to do that is with modest monthly donations, $10, $15, $20 a month. Maybe you can give part of your stimulus check. If you don't need all of that, please contribute to us. Go to movetoamend.org and donate. That would be most appreciated. Greg, do we have any questions?
Well, I have a couple for you before we get to the questions. It has to do with the fundraising. How many corporations, big corporations, fund Move to Amend?
See, how about none?
How about political parties?
Political parties? Oh no, we don't do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of groups out there that are sort of fronts for political parties.
Yes, they are.
Got to say that. How about
They get big money too.
They get big money. How about I don't know. How about the super rich? Billionaires.
Super rich. The 1%,
multi-millionaires. Yeah.
How many 1%ers are giving to Move to Amend? I believe that number equals the number of corporate donations that we get and the number of political campaigns that we're part of, all equaling zero. We depend on the donations from we, the people.
Yep. And and same goes for government. We don't get any government grants.
Nope.
So we are, as we emphasize each week on making sense, we are among, focusing on a lot of things other than the amendment. We focus on race and anti-oppression work. We also focus on being politically and economically independent. Yes. And those two go hand in hand. Yeah. You can't be the one without the other, and you can't be the other without the one. I guess if A equals B, then B equals A. So they go together, right? I'm no great mathematician.
We're beholden to the people, our people, y'all.
So we're beholden to people who support us. So if you can help us out, help us out. We're 100% grassroots funded. So any
Absolutely.
questions, comments, queries? I see that Caitlin Sapoki Belknap is, she's usually on this side where we are this week, but she is tuning in. I guess maybe we're being rated, George. So I hope we
Oh,
passed the test.
let's see.
So if any of you have any questions, there she is. So happy to have you from this. Well, she's saying that early on. Okay,
Right.
before, right. Who knows? Uh,
Oh,
maybe
so
she
she's on Facebook. See, I
see.
figured that out. I
Yeah,
figured that
right.
means she's watching us on Facebook.
So
Sandy gave me a great book I shared with my nieces years back about um, women who were part of sports. I don't know if that was Ohio or not. I'm not remembering well. But my nieces loved it, and I did too.
yeah, Sandy's talking about. Thank you, Sandy, for the prompt. This film called The New Corporation. Maybe some of you were familiar with the old. It wasn't called the old. The original. It was called The Corporation. Just a tremendous film put out. Man, it's like 20 years ago. That was maybe the first. I mean, just exhaustive. 2.5 hour. I mean, you were like hoisting the white flag about 90
Uh,
minutes into this thing, but it's just superlative that just deconstructs what the corporation is, its harm it causes to the planet, to people, to communities, as well as to whatever you want to call self-governance, democracy, sovereignty that we have ever had. You judge for yourself. But uh, it has been updated, and it's due to come out within a couple of months. It's going to be made available to, I think, groups that want to maybe co-host. And so what Sandy is talking about is a group in Ohio, a group that we've been working with, and maybe other Move to Men groups in their part of the world have been working with their equivalent sort of community rights groups, whether they're affiliated with CELDEF, the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, or the National Community Rights Network. Those organizations out there doing good work are sort of sisters and brothers in the campaign to call out and abolish corporate constitutional rights. And so they're going to be sponsoring this flick. And so watch for it. It may be something that if you are connected to a Move to Men organization, come summer, come fall, maybe want to hook up with them. And we'll be trying to put some information together. I know Jessica Munger on our staff has been in touch with some of the point people who are not just the producers, but I think doing the organizing of getting the film out. So there'll be some information from Move to Amend about how Move to Amenders can connect with this film. So, any other queries, comments? I'm not seeing any. If there's any that we should be seeing, Alfonso, put up. If not, we could sort of move to the
winners.
yes, winner first. So who is the winner?
I know.
Okay, no questions. Alfonso, if you want to sort of pick and choose winner.
We've got a winner for Twitter. Alfonso, you got to tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I have it. It is Cala Bernication at Brooklyn, New York, NY Girl. I don't know how to find out if I did that right.
Well, on Facebook, it's Caroline Perry. So sorry if I butcher the name, Stritzinger. That's her name on Facebook. So reach out to us, Caroline. Maybe the best way to do that. How is the best way to do that? I don't remember. Is it to send? Well, we know who you are, so we'll reach out to you. And great. All right. So we ready to Go
Our
to next meeting is
last Wednesday in May is
May 26th. Same time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And so I think we are ready to move to our hell yeah moment.
going to
George.
close things out with this hell yeah moment. This month, Deb Holland, and I may be pronouncing that wrong. It's Haaland, was confirmed as the first Native American Interior Secretary. Also, the first Native American to hold a cabinet position in the entire history of the U.S. Her confirmation alone is remarkable and worth celebrating, especially after Haaland got to work straight away. She is launching a missing and murdered Indigenous unit to investigate the approximately 1,500 American Indian and Alaskan Native missing person cases and the approximate 2,700 murder cases. Far too often, murders and missing person cases in Indian country go unsolved and unaddressed, leaving families and communities devastated, said Haaland. The U.S. Interior Department is also taking several steps to restore Native American land by redelegating authority to review and approve applications by tribes to Regional Bureau of Indian Affairs directors, a reversal of a Trump-era order that gave jurisdiction to the Interior's Department headquarters, which led to delays. Hooray to Interior Secretary Deb Haaland for all her good work.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
What I remember saying to him was, you don't know what this means to Indian country. It's significant, it's historical, it's meaningful, and I think we're all indebted to him.
Especially meaningful considering the department's past.
The Interior Department's job was to either assimilate or exterminate Native Americans.
Today, the department oversees roughly 1/5 of all the nation's land. That includes 574 federally recognized tribes and Secretary Holland's own, the Laguna Pueblo of New Mexico.
I think a lot of Native Americans have felt powerless, and so often it's been easy to take land away, to drill and mine in sacred places.
She's pledged to transform the department to confront climate change, raising fears within the oil and gas industry that she says are unfounded.
The fossil fuel industry will continue for years to come.
Are you saying there will be no permanent ban on oil and gas drilling on federal lands?
There is not a permanent ban. It was a pause on new gas and oil leases because, rightly so, the program needed to be reviewed. So the existing gas and oil leases have continued.
What are your plans, your goals, as you lead the Interior Department?
One issue that I've been passionate about for a long time, missing and murdered Indigenous women. That's a crisis that's been happening since Europeans came to this continent 500 years ago. And I'm really excited to announce that at the Department of Interior, we will have a missing and murdered unit that will focus specifically on this crisis and make sure that families can have some answers.
American Indian and Alaska Native women are killed at a rate 10 times higher than the national average.
There are a lot of cases that are unsolved, and those are the ones that we need to solve.
Corporations are not people, too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now, we have the right to be free. Corporations are not people, too. Money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now, up and defend your democracy.
Have you recently read the Constitution? There seems to be
be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change. The state, it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken. Well, show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies, and the music, and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy. Here is a solution.